NALCREST, the National Association of Letter Carriers retirement community located just outside Lake Wales, Florida. NALCREST consists of 500 garden-style apartments sitting on 300 acres on the edge of Lake Walk-in-Water. NALCREST was the brainchild of President William Doherty and opened in 1964. Wait a minute. Before I can tell you what NALCREST is, I feel you should know why NALCREST is. Let's rewind a bit. Okay, stop there. Nope, we need to go a little further back. Farther still. Okay, stop there. Yep, we can begin here. After the NALC formed in 1889, letter carriers had to petition Congress for every wage or benefit increase. The hard-working letter carriers of the time were paid a meager wage, often well below that of the civilian workforce. In many cases, letter carriers held a second job just to be able to make ends meet. It wasn't until after 1920 that letter carriers were given a retirement by the federal government, and in 1935 that a 40-hour work week was passed into law. Until then, carriers were at the mercy of the post office and Congress. Things began to change when President Kennedy signed Executive Order 10988 in 1962, opening the door for what would become our ability to bargain collectively. However, it wasn't until 1970 and the Wildcat Strike that letter carriers achieved that right. When NALC President Doherty was elected in 1941, America had just entered the Second World War and the nation's prosperity was beginning to grow, except for letter carriers. Unfortunately, there was a 10-year span when letter carriers received no wage increase. In fact, President Eisenhower voted down 4 pay raises during his tenure. The NALC had to do something to look out for its somewhat new retirees. After the war, Doherty was asked by the U.S. government to travel to Europe as a representative of labor on their behalf. It is believed that during these trips the idea for NALCREST was born. The possibility of sponsoring a nonprofit retirement home for letter carriers and their spouses was originally discussed at the NALC's Cleveland Convention in 1954. Acting on a resolution approved by the San Francisco Convention in 1958, the NALC appointed a special committee to study the proposed project. The project set out to find if the task was feasible, the best location for a retirement community, and the ability of securing financing for the project. It only took a month for the committee to determine the feasibility of the project. The next step was to find a location. After soliciting input from active and retired carriers and numerous state associations via the postal record, the NALC decided to build a retirement facility on a 153-acre tract of land in Polk County on the shore of Lake Walk-in-Water in central Florida, midway between Tampa on the Gulf Coast and Vero Beach on the Atlantic coast. The original deed shows that on June 18, 1962, the tract of land now known as NALCREST was purchased, consisting of 300 acres of Florida pine woods situated on a 7,500-acre lake that is an angler's paradise. Financing would be procured through Section 231, Title II Housing for the Elderly, National Housing Act of 1959. Under this act, the NALC could sponsor a retirement community but provide no financial responsibility. Since financing would be through the Federal Housing Authority, there was no financial risk to the NALC, and when the note was paid off, the entire property would revert to the NALC through the NALCREST Foundation. The design style of the townhomes was to be single-level 1- and 2-bedroom homes, allowing for no stairs and ease of access to its residents. Before anything could happen, the membership had to grant the committee the authority to proceed. This was achieved by a unanimous vote at the 1962 convention held in Denver. The community was to be named NALCREST, short for National Association of Letter Carriers Retirement, Education, Security, and Training Foundation. The groundbreaking ceremonies took place on July 1, 1962, with NALC President Doherty turning the first shovel of earth with approximately 300 people in attendance. Construction began almost immediately as the surveyors and planners had been on site in preparation for the event. Several editions of the postal record ran applications for residency for NALCREST following the groundbreaking ceremony. Apartments would rent for as little as $69.50 in 1963. In fact, Doherty became one of the first pioneer residents in 1963 with only 100 of the proposed 500 units complete. More than 2,000 people celebrated NALCREST's dedication ceremony on January 20, 1964, as the dream of a permanent retirement home for letter carriers came true. Local newspapers ran stories of the event, and even President Johnson sent a telegram praising the efforts of the NALC and looking out for its members' welfare. From the beginning, NALCREST was responsible for its own fire and police protection and had a volunteer fire department until 2001, when the county assumed that role. The 7-foot bronze statue of Richard F. Quinn, a Philadelphia carrier, was relocated to NALCREST's town center in 1963. Quinn was an organizer of the NALC and served as its president from 1895 to 1896. The statue was originally in front of the William Penn Post Office Annex in Philadelphia, but needed a new home when the office was rebuilt. He found that home in NALCREST. The 1960s gave birth to NALCREST and saw it through some turbulent times. Much to Doherty's dismay, the NALCREST Foundation, in an effort to rent apartments to keep the nonprofit from being assumed by the federal government, opened the residency up to non-union members. However, this practice was halted in 2002 when the mortgage note was fully paid, allowing only members in good standing as residents. The 1970s began with great enthusiasm as NALCREST was near capacity. The building, now known as Brennan Hall, was built originally housing pool tables, dartboards, and other recreational items. Brennan Hall is still among the most used facilities at NALCREST, home to numerous clubs, meetings, and events. The 1980s saw NALCREST's 25th anniversary in 1988 with a week-long ceremony. April marked the 25th anniversary celebration with a parade in nearby Lake Wales. Unfortunately, sadness also accompanied the 80s as it saw the passing of Doherty on August 9, 1987. NALCREST's champion had spent the majority of his life fighting for letter carriers at work and in retirement. On October 30th, 1987, the 500-seat auditorium in the town center officially became the William C. Doherty Auditorium. Through the 1990s, NALCREST continued to flourish, was well established, running smoothly, and occupancy was at capacity by the mid-90s. Sports facilities were expanded, lush landscaping had been completed, and the residents continued to work toward the good of NALCREST. From the widening of the main highway to a tornado touchdown in 1998, there never seemed to be a dull moment at NALCREST. The first decade of the new millennium brought its own ups and downs. In September of 2002, the final mortgage installment was paid. In 2004, National Geographic came to NALCREST and did a somewhat complimentary article. 2004 was also the year that 3 hurricanes hit NALCREST. Damage to almost all 66 buildings and a loss of over 25 trees was weathered with no loss of life. Numerous clubs raised over $7,500 towards a generator for the auditorium, as power loss was the major complaint of the storms. Murals on the walls were painted in late 2004 to early 2005. Over the years, NALCREST has developed into a full-fledged retirement community with 500 apartments clustered in 66 one-story buildings, a town center, the 500-seat William C. Doherty Auditorium, and a sports complex named in honor of NALC President Emeritus Vincent R. Sombrato, fully owned by the NALC since September 2002, when NALC's mortgage was retired. No union dues are used to support the facility. Rather, as a nonprofit community, NALCREST's reasonable rates cover operating expenses. NALCREST residents, although retired, constantly demonstrate their union heritage and social service values. Retired carriers meet as Branch 1A, an honorary branch of the NALC, since residents must maintain their membership in their home branches. So, what does NALCREST look like now at 50? Here's a quick peek. From its inception until today, NALCREST has provided carriers a place to call their own, benefiting countless numbers of retired letter carriers. This is your retirement community. This is my retirement community. NALCREST is our retirement community. For 50 years, the dream of President Doherty has flourished amid the pine woods of Central Florida. Happy 50th, NALCREST, the National Association of Letter Carriers' little piece of heaven. Here's to another 50 years of being there for letter carriers.